Okay, good morning, almost afternoon. Welcome to the Finance and Budget Committee. And the first item we need is a motion to approve the minutes from December, I believe. Moved by Supervisor Casito, seconded by Supervisor Mayday. Any additions, corrections, comments? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Carried. Privilege of the floor and public comment. Yes, Madam Treasurer.
I know this is the last time, Amanda, but I can hand out anything before getting it to you. I just wanted to give everybody an update on the tax report. When I saw it last week or in the tourism committee, I handed it out. Something looked weird to me. No, it's a different. So when we handed it out last week, so I'm just going to talk to the occupancy tax report, the total collections. The modified accrual, and I don't mean to confuse anybody, but the government accounting is different than corporate America accounting. We're not straight accrual, we're a modified accrual basis. So with that, you will see that due to Warren County's modified accrual, the 2024 total OCC tax revenue will continue to increase through April 2025. So we don't have a hard close on our books at year end, and we don't have a big accrual process before year end. What we do is we keep the books open January, February, and March, and we continue to update 2024 figures. So with that, I just want to show you. So you saw in the tourism 12/31/2024, you saw an interim number of $7 million. But then I looked at the 2023 number and I saw 6.7, and I know for a fact that it was more like 7.7 was the last year's number. But again, so these numbers, I've updated this for your information. So you'll see this is the interim number in 2023. That was for 12/31, excuse me, 12/31, yes. And then in, excuse me, hold on one second. Yes. In January, the next one is in January 24, it went up to 7.1. And in February 24, it went up to 7.5, and 3/31/24, it went up to the 7.8. So that's the final number that we came in with OCC tax. Is everybody following me with this? So they're interim numbers until we close the books in April. So that's why the number that the 6.7 did not look right. So I just wanted to share this with you so that you could see that it's continually growing. So for December, it's 7.1 right now. In January, we've collected 7.7 almost, and then we'll have enough time to catch up to the 7.7 that was collected in 2024. The good news is we're about $70,000 or $80,000 off. So we're feeling that we're going to come in. Oh, geez. We're feeling that we're going to, we're not only going to meet it, but we're going to exceed it. And I just wanted to clarify why the numbers looked a little bit odd the last time I put it out. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Sorry. The one hand thing is a little bit of a drag. Does anyone have any questions now? I hope that made sense and I didn't confuse people.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the action agenda, and the first item is the request for transfer of funds as attached for the committee's approval. I think looks like there's just one. Someone care to move that? Looks like $50,000 from Country Club Thorpe Road to crack sealing in the county roads. Moved by Supervisor Mayday. Seconded by Supervisor Casito. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question on that one. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Next is request items to be discussed by the county administrator, Mr. Taflin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The journal report is significant this month. We're closing out the year number one. We didn't have a meeting in January. Correct that. We didn't have a meeting in December. So this covers 2 months. Board of Elections in November, 41,000 for a contract with election system software. And $15,000 for ballots is in there. Health Services, moving money to cover a carpet cost, installation and furniture, and it's paid for by their infrastructure grant. Health Services in December, moving dollars to increase preschool, 160,000 and 50,000, and early intervention, $50,000 cost. We receive state reimbursement of 59% and 50% for those items, so we cover the rest of them. DSS moving money, aid to dependent children from A.6109 and childcare A6119 that cover short cares in home relief and daycare. And I think other than that, there are there's other amounts that are moved that were in the budget. If there are any questions, I'll go to 6B. I'm sorry, 2B. So item 2B, request to amend the current contract with National Business Equipment to add a device for the Treasurer's Department and authorize a one-time charge of $300 to move a device from the county clerk's office to the print shop.
Someone care to move that? Moved by Supervisor Molino, seconded by Supervisor Driscoll. Any questions or discussion? Is this for wiring or connections, or
Connections, and it's a piece of equipment.
it's not just somebody moving it, right?
It will be connecting, and also the device that we're moving from the county clerk's office has a JMX, it's coin operated. They have to remove that as well. So they're going to remove that. They're going to put it down in the basement and they're going to do all the connections of that.
Okay.
The device for the Treasurer's Department is they requested a small color printer for Octax processing. of
Octax.
cards.
Yeah. For
Good.
budget finance reports. Because of the negatives.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Call the question on 2B. All in favor?
Right.
Aye. Opposed? 2C.
Okay, item 2C is request to appropriate $300,000 from budget code A896 vehicle reserve to budget code A3110 to sheriff's law enforcement automotive equipment reserve to cover the cost of purchasing vehicles. A lot of you know, we've been talking about potentially entering into a lease. One of the companies we looked at was Enterprise. To lease vehicles instead of purchasing them. We looked at the long-term cost of that. They exceed $1 million a year. And we probably don't think that's the wise decision. So we're going to continue to purchase vehicles. That said, we have talked at the Criminal Justice Committee about some sheriff's road patrol vehicles that are over 10 years old and are costing about $8,000 in repairs. So the sheriff's going to move towards replacing those this year. This is something we're going to deal with in next year's budget as well, probably coming back to the board and increasing the amount of money that goes into the vehicle reserve so that we can catch up on some of these vehicles. Probably, I think we were looking at about an additional $200,000. But we'll talk about that when we come into the budget next year. Thank you.
Someone care to move that? Supervisor Geraci, seconded by Supervisor Mayday. Didn't we allocate 400,000 for sheriff's vehicles, or am I?
We did last year. We allocated
Last year.
400. We had, because we didn't have allocate 600,000 to the vehicle reserve this year. That's why it's 300,000 this year. That leaves us about $238,000 in the vehicle reserve. And we have 7 other vehicles for other departments in the county that we need to replace that are 10 years old.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
The only thing I would request is that we get a listing of all the vehicles the sheriff has, and also a listing of what's being purchased.
Okay.
and how much it is, so we know what we're buying and what we have and what we need to replace.
Okay.
That would be,
Thank you, sir.
it'd be appreciated. Any other questions or discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Number 3 is referrals from the Criminal Justice, Public Safety and Emergency Services Committee. And this is the Office of Emergency Services. And it looks like, we could probably do A through F if, that's agreeable with everyone. It's just,
Their little grant.
it's carrying money forward.
Make that motion.
Introduced by Supervisor Geraci, seconded by Supervisor Cusito. Any questions on any of those? It's carrying over unused funds from various grants. I'll call the question on 3. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Number 4 is referrals from the Economic Growth and Development Committee. And A is Planning and Community Development. And it's a request to amend the 2025 Warren County budget in the amount of $20,000 to reflect receipt of occupancy tax funding. And this will pay for consulting services for a recreational assessment in the town of Johnsburg is authorized by Resolution 440 of 2024. Introduced by Supervisor Molino, seconded by Supervisor Cusito. Any discussion or question on 4A? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Let's see, that's carried. Next is a request to transfer funds in the amount of $2,000 from budget code 1990 contingent account and transfer it to the 470 code in Planning and Community Development. Contractual to cover the cost of the request for an increase in the annual membership from ANCA, the Adirondack North Country Association, from 3,000 to 5,000. By Supervisor Mayday.
I'll second it with the question.
Okay.
Chairman.
Seconded by Supervisor Driscoll. Yes, Mr. Driscoll.
Is this the association that different counties pay a different membership fee or?
Yeah, I believe it is actually. Yeah,
So if everyone needs to pay an additional fee for the cost of, I guess, doing business or expansion of services,
I'm not sure that's the case.
okay,
I would suggest, just a suggestion, that we only give them 1,000. And that if they want 2,000, they can tell us why they want 2,000. I mean, we just got done doing the budget here, so. They should have.
I mean, I'll make that I'll the amended,
Amend it.
yeah,
You okay with that,
Yeah.
Supervisor Mayday? Okay, so we're gonna amend 4B from $2,000 increase to a $1,000 increase. And if the additional 1,000 is sought after, we can address that in the 2026 budget.
I
Problem?
just have a question. So there was a separate motion that was made by the Economic Growth Committee to amend the contract with ANCO to increase that amount to $5,000. Sure, we'll have to then,
We'll have to amend the resolution to match the funding.
I'll make a note of that. Rachel.
Any further questions or discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Item 4C is a request for transfer of funds in the amount of $3,028.88, again from the contingent account to various budget codes within the Planning Community Development Department budget to cover the cost of mailing a survey to 1,595 underserved and unserved households in Warren County And this is to determine the interest in a satellite-based internet program. So someone care to introduce that or not?
I'll introduce it, but I'd like to know also if, there's, in addition to the mailings, if municipalities are able to, distribute, like at their town halls or city halls or not-for-profit organizations that might serve, underserved, communities or neighborhoods have access to that also, so that as many of them can get out there
Right.
as possible.
Introduced by Supervisor Driscoll, seconded by Supervisor Mayday. Are these people identified? I mean, we know who these
We know who those people,
people.
thanks, Mr. Chair. We have a count of all the people who are unserved by broadband in the county. GIS has that on a map. And that, for the planning department, that gives them, you know, points of contact they need to go to talk to them about.
Are there other broadband funds that could be applied to this? Do we know? Probably not.
I don't believe
Wouldn't
so.
be
I
as-
think that we we're trying to do the survey now, then we're going to, if we identify people who are interested in satellite internet service, then we would look for funds to support that effort. But the initial survey, we're asking the county to fund.
Good.
Planning department's asking the county.
Any other discussion on 4C? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? 4D is to request to establish CD 80, Community Development Fund 80, in the amount of $400,000. And this is to cover the cost of septic replacement projects for low and moderate income households.
And this is grant funded through a block grant.
Resolution introduced by Supervisor Mayday, seconded by Supervisor Geraci. Any discussion on that one? Yes.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr. Chairman. Is there a cap per household under 4,000? I know some of them have a cap. The LGA.
I'm not sure if this was 10,000 or 20,000. I believe it's 10,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can answer.
And when we talk about households, we're talking about property owners, so, an individual, a landlord, wouldn't necessarily qualify, or they would. Yeah, or,
It'd have to be low.
No, this is lower moderate income. This
Okay.
is focused on lower to moderate income.
okay, all right.
And just
Okay.
for your information, the average septic system is now running about $25,000 to $27,000
Okay.
for replacements.
Any other discussion? Call the question on 4D. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Number 5 is referrals from the Health Services Committee. And I do believe that we could do A, B, and C on this one also. They all amend the county budget. The first one is $7,941.65, and it's grant funding from the Governor's Traffic and Safety Committee for Child Passengers Car Seat Safety Program. The second one is $5,107.18, and this is to carry over unused funding for the Delivery System Reform Incentive Payment, which is grant funding. And 5C is $190,942.56. And this is receipt of a portion of the Jewel settlement award for 2024 and 2025. Moved by Supervisor Molino, seconded by Supervisor Driscoll. Any questions on 5A, B, or C? Discussion. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, number,
A through E could also be, batched together.
okay. Number 6 is referrals from the Human Services Committee chaired by Supervisor Driscoll. And I think we can do all 5 of these, A through E. Introduced by Supervisor Driscoll. The second, seconded by Supervisor Mayday. It's all receipt of grant funding. The first one is 197,867 for Code Blue. B is 46,509. This is for the New York State Shelter Arrears Eviction Forestallment Program. C is 82,693. And this is through the TANF program. Temporary and disability services. D is $20,000. And this is through Child and Family Services for the purposes of improving services for families and infants affected by substance use disorders. And E is $30,000 in grant funding. And this is also for family services for municipal safe harbor funding for the purpose of supporting youth identified as trafficked, sexually exploited, or at risk up to age 21.
Just, Mr. Chair, just a point, A, B, and C are funded by the OTDA, Office of
Yeah.
Temporary Disability Services, or still affairs, and OCFS is funding D and E.
Okay. Call the question. Any questions or discussion? Call the question on 6, A through E. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Next is referrals from the Legislative Rules and Government Operations Committee. They're all for the Board of Elections. The first A is a request to appropriate $60,000 from Budget Code A909, General Fund Unappropriated Surplus, to various budget codes within the Board of Elections Department budget to cover the cost of an unanticipated 2025 congressional special election. The only suggestion I would make is that we take it out of the contingent account rather than the fund balance. But that's up to the committee. We can,
If that's the recommendation of
Yeah.
our budget officer, I
I agree
see
with
fit
that.
to,
moved by Supervisor Driscoll
modify that.
and seconded by Supervisor Mayday. And this will come out of the contingent, so. Any other questions or discussion? I did request that a letter be written to the president and also to Representative Stefanik to help us with funding this special election. Help the county, so. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The clerk tells me we can withdraw B and D. They're not necessary. So that would leave C and E. And this is the carryover. C is the carryover 36,831.78. And it's unused ballot by mail grant funding. And E is to carry over 5,795.09. And this is also unused ballot grant funding. For 7 C and E, moved by Supervisor Merlino, seconded by Supervisor Kishido. Any discussion on those? If not, I'll call the question on 7 C and E. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, carried. Next is number 8, and this is referral from the Occupancy Tax Coordination Committee. And this is to appropriate $100,000 from Budget Code A881 Occupancy Tax Reserve to the A 6417 480 code. And this is for the occupancy tax for the Civic Center capital cost to cover the cost of the contract with the Adirondack Civic Center Coalition support capital costs. And this is one of a 5-year term at the rate of $100,000 per year.
Point of order, Chairman, Larry, should I abstain from this? Do I need
Yes.
to leave the room or?
Yes.
Okay,
Supervisor Driscoll is exiting the room. Resolution introduced by Supervisor Merlino.
I have a question.
Okay, they have second, seconded by Supervisor Geraci. Mr. Merlino,
This is the last one of a 5-year contract.
this is the last one? Okay,
And Chairman, if I can just make one clarifying statement, so there's no confusion in the future. Title to this facility, it remains with the city of Glens Falls. So while the money is going to the Adirondack Civic Center Coalition for the capital improvement is to a municipal buildings structure.
Okay.
Thank you.
thanks. Any other discussion on number 8? Call the question, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Number 9 is a referral from the Public Works Committee. And this is the Parks and Recreation and Railroad Department. It's to amend the county 2025 county budget in the amount of $1,800. And this was receipt of a donation from the Lewis Global Village Charitable Trust. Introduced by Supervisor Mayday, seconded by Supervisor Crescido. Any discussion on that? I'll call the question on number 9. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
And Chairman, that usually goes with a letter of thanks or appreciation.
Yep. Very good. Number 10 is Finance Committee action required on the personnel agenda items. And this is agenda item 4, 5A, 5B, and 7B. Number 4 is a request from the Director of Information Technology. And this is to appropriate $33,000 from budget code A895 Computer Reserve Fund to various budget codes to cover the cost of purchasing computers and related equipment and software. Introduced by Supervisor Mayday, seconded by Supervisor Merlino. Any discussion on that item? I'll call the question on 10-4. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Number 5 is, these are items from the Criminal Justice and Public Safety and Emergency Services Committee. 5A is the Probation Department. And this is to amend the table of organization and salary schedule. And it will create a new position of probation officer trainee, grade 16, base salary $57,270, and unfund but retain in the table of organization the position of probation officer. And this is effective February 24th, 2025. Introduced by Supervisor Mayday, seconded by Supervisor Geraci. Any discussion on 5A? Yeah, I'll call the question on that one. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5B, and this is a request to, again, amend the table of organization and salary schedule in the Sheriff's Department to create the new position of building maintenance mechanic, part-time, grade 15, base annual salary of $28.86 per hour. And this is also effective February 24th, 2025. Introduced by Mr. Supervisor Mayday, seconded by Supervisor Geraci. Any discussion or questions on 5B? I have one question. Is this a permanent position? I mean, I know it's part-time, but is it going to be there? Because I understand that the person's out and this is the cover person. after this person returns to work, is this position going away or do we know that?
Mr. Chair, I do not know the answer to that question. I thought the intent was just to get them through the issue because they've had maintenance issues recently that have cost. I thought they were just trying to get through the time when the other person would return, but I'll have to verify that. I'll let you know.
It's kind of the way I took it at that committee meeting, that it was going to go.
Go away?
Yeah, it's gonna go.
But I
think so.
swear to that, but you know, that's the way I interpret.
Okay. All right.
And we had a lengthy discussion about, DPW picking up those responsibilities, and that was explored years ago, and it just didn't work out just because of the dynamics of 24/7, 365 operation.
Right, and plus also security reasons.
Right, yeah.
Whoever you have is-
Sure.
Okay, any other discussion? Call the question on 10.5B. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 10.7, and this is a request from the county attorney's office. And it's a transfer of funds in the amount of $1,400 from the contingent account. And this is to the county attorney advertising fees. And it's due to the New York State tax foreclosure laws. The annual tax foreclosure sale needed to be filed 3 months earlier than in past years. As a result, more parcels were included in the 2025 tax foreclosure lawsuit than past years, which increased the newspaper publication costs. Introduced by Supervisor Mayday, seconded by Supervisor Molino. Any discussion on 10.7B? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Just the state helping us out again. Any other items from the committee? Yes.
Just a quick announcement, this evening at Crandall Library, CDTA is going to be doing a public hearing in regard to proposed rate increases and discussion about other related matters. That begins at 6 o'clock. It's supposed to go to 7:30 at the latest. Downstairs at the library.
Thank you. Privilege of the floor and public comment. Anyone? Motion to adjourn. Moved by Supervisor Mayday, seconded by Supervisor Driscoll. We are adjourned.